India's biggest passenger car company, Maruti, has painted a rather grim outlook for the car industry for next 3 years. So why is the management of India's biggest passenger car company, Maruti, which enjoys nearly 40% market share, cautious and careful? Let's connect with the chairman himself, Mr. R.C. Bhargav, who joins us live from New Delhi, or NCR, I would say. Mr. Bhargav, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Bhargav,
good morning.
Your November dispatch numbers, October dispatch numbers, they've been strong, but you've poured cold water on all the analyst expectations by that comment that Maruti could face some serious challenges going forward.
That's correct. But you have to understand that these remarks were made in the context of the growth expectations of this industry, which were there earlier when, the industry was expecting to grow at something close to 15% a year. We were expecting to double our sales to 5 million by 2015. And compared to that, what is happening now is quite different. A number of factors have changed in the economy. The biggest factor, of course, has been the high cost of fuel, which has been the result of finally petrol prices coming up to market-driven valuations, whereas, of course, the diesel prices have still remained below that. And that has resulted in diesel sales growing at a much, much faster rate, and petrol sales, in fact, having degrowth. We never expected degrowth of the petrol business to ever happen, but it happened because of the relative pricing of the fuels. And the whole economy, which was expected to grow at 8–9% a year, slowed down to something like 5–5.5% a year. The manufacturing sector has slowed down, the capital goods sector has slowed down, and these are all sectors whose growth actually drives the car industry. So the result has been that all these forecasts of 15% growth or double-digit growths have vanished.
But Mr. Bhargav, just quoting from your, interview this morning to a leading newspaper, you've said and blamed the political environment of the country and said categorically that double-digit growth is unlikely in the next 3 years. Why the political environment? Could you elaborate on that?
Well, what I meant by the political environment is that we have a coalition now, and the coalition, for all its reforms, is dependent on a number of regional parties. And these regional parties don't necessarily look at reforms in the same way as we would look from industrial point of view, or which the Congress party looks upon as being necessary for the growth of the country. And therefore you have seen that a number of reform measures have got stalled. If something has got passed, it's been passed because there is a kind of quid pro quo, at least, for somebody to get out of this. If that doesn't happen, then we still don't know what will happen. 2014, therefore, becomes the next landmark. And at the moment, at least, it looks like 2014 will also throw up a coalition of some sort. I don't know who the coalition partners will be, but the chances are it will be a coalition. And in that coalition, the composition of the parties will be such that most likely we will again have this situation where there is no unanimity about the need to drive forward with reforms to change the fear complex which today pervades the bureaucracy in terms of decision making, to change the laws relating to corruption and criminal misconduct, which make it very, very unlikely that civil servants and bureaucrats in future will not only take decisions, but take decisions which will drive business forward. So looking at that environment, it seems to me, and that's the political environment, what I meant when I said that I think at least for the next 3 years, I don't see very much happening.
Mr. Bhargav, is somewhere Maruti suffering because of focus on petrol cars?
Not focus on petrol cars. We are, of course, losing our growth momentum to an extent because petrol cars are on a declining path. In 2011-12, petrol sales were, I think, about 16 or 18% lower than the previous year. And this year also, petrol car sales are lower than last year. We have something close to, or over actually, 500,000 K-series engine, petrol engine capacity, which has become idle because of this degrowth of the industry instead of a growth at around 10-12%.
Mr. Bhargav, so, looking at all the pointers that you just talked about, you recently announced a price hike by up to 20,000 rupees per car on one end, and, it's pretty high for Maruti as well. Do you think customers are ready for such price hikes?
I don't think we have yet made any price hikes.
Okay, fair point. Are you looking at doing so?
I saw the newspaper report. I saw the newspaper report which said that price hikes are likely in January. But I don't know actually what will happen. I think we have to wait and see.
So do you think in the given scenario you will actually be able to hike your prices January or February?
Price hikes become necessary when the costs go up to an extent where it becomes unviable to produce a model and sell it. And I'm not fully aware of what has been happening to all the costs because I don't really get into the price fixation matters. But the rupee has been somewhat volatile against the dollar. That affects our costs. Raw materials have not been so bad in the last few months, but it's only the foreign exchange factor which is affecting the landed price of some imported raw materials. But overall, I think the inflationary situation and the cost factors are probably driving up costs. Now, to what extent prices will increase will, of course, depend on market conditions. Some models may take a bigger price hike. Some models will not take a price hike. That also, I'm sure, is quite evident from the way the market is behaving.
Mr. Bhargav, have you taken all the necessary and important steps to ensure that Maruti for next 2-3 years will not experience a HR or a labor issue?
We have always had very employee-friendly HR practices, and this is the result. These practices have resulted in the high growth of productivity, continuous growth of productivity, the very effective and result-oriented quality circles, suggestion schemes from the workers. We are continuing with all those practices both at Gurgaon and Manesar. Manesar, what happened last year, I think, was an aberration. It was a result of something which we never anticipated. I think it was something which happened without at least our having an indication that this was going to happen. I doubt if such a thing will happen again in the foreseeable future. I think the workers have realized that the route which was followed by a certain section of misguided workers was actually detrimental to the interests of the workers, could not possibly benefit them. And I don't think workers are not clever enough to understand that doing things which doesn't benefit them should not be done.
So for next 12 months or for the calendar year 2013, what will be Maruti's big focus? Gain market share, focus on margins, or ensure that there are no HR problems?
No, that there will be no HR problems has to be taken almost as a given, because that's a continuous program of maintaining very close and friendly relationship with the employees, of constant communication, of understanding each other's needs and problems. So I don't think we should even treat that as something which should be a changing focus. It's a constant focus in the company at all times. As far as between market share and margins are concerned, I think we have always to keep a balance. We do need a certain bottom line result to come out because we need the funds for further investments, modernization, new model introduction. So you cannot run a company without a reasonable profit margin. At the same time, it is also important to keep your market share going. So both these factors have to be balanced at all times, and the policies have to be guided towards that. So far, I think we have been able to managing that to a reasonable extent. Of course, we're not getting the kind of margins which we used to have earlier, but then I think those days have gone.
Mr. Bhargav, really appreciate you taking the time out and chatting with us this morning.